We picked up this house as a house that was headed down the path of being lost. It had a hole in the roof that went all the way down to the basement from the roof to the basement, and with various different issues, I've not been able to get it all renovated as quick as I should, and there's just a lot of mess.
I understand.
Involved with the septic.
I've always got 500 things going on.
2 years ago, rescued 45 mums from Miami Valley Hospital.
Okay.
That the landscape crew was throwing away because they were transitioning over to something different for winter. And so I snatched them all, 45 of them anyway. I got about half of what they had. And then I divided them last year. And then this year I'm more aggressively dividing them. So if I could get them all out, I'd be able to do about 1,000 of them.
Wow. That's like 1,000 mums across the city.
Propagating grapes is an extremely high priority for me and a couple other people. Our goal is within the next 5 years to have 5,000 grapevines planted around the city. So we've been starting on that, dabbling. I give them away as fast as I get them rooted, so I'm not building up.
Yeah, I'm looking for some great plants, and this is one of my favorites. This is spearmint right here, isn't it?
The big one is.
Yeah, it's so delicious.
One's peppermint.
My wife's been making spearmint,
actually, I've got
peppermint
two types of
lemonade. It's just
fantastic.
fantastic.
This is the one I grew up with here, but as you can see back there or back here, I've got another one. It's a really weird spearmint. It's a real pale, fuzzy leaf.
Okay.
It's totally spearmint.
Wow, you got a lot of really cool stuff back here.
These are some lilies that were given to me by, I can't say the name, Lori. I can't think of it, but she's a professor at Sinclair.
Okay.
That invited me to come out and get some plants and things for Feed Dayton and for the beautification. And those are a few that they gave me. This is kind of cool to, I think it's neat. Here's, so that was 2 years ago, that grapevine there, and the one out here 2 years ago. And then last year, I've only got these two left, and then one that's come up that I didn't even know had survived.
Okay.
And then for this year, these aren't doing all that good. I don't know how many I'll get out of this. I did about 100 of them. I might get 20 or so.
Okay.
But the guy that gives me all the vines is doing them this year for me too.
So like in 10 years, can we expect Dayton to be like a homegrown wine capital?
Yeah, whatever. Grape juice. But look at this space right here. Okay.
These are all berries, aren't they?
This is raspberries. These are the ever-bearing ones. So on last year's canes, they produce early in their second year. But then the new canes that come up won't start producing until like early August, but they'll go all the way up to Thanksgiving.
Okay.
So this will be a light crop now for a few weeks. This will be an extremely heavy crop all the way to past 4 frosts. But remember this space, because I'm going to show you where this space went.
Okay.
In a minute. Always trying to propagate rhubarb, and once again, I give them away, the plants so fast that I'm not building up as much reserve as I'd like. Here are some of the mums that haven't been divided yet, and each of those clumps will produce 20 to 30 new plants, and each of those starts will produce a full-size mum by fall.
Okay.
And there's a few more down here.
This is what you can do in a backyard in Dayton.
More mums to be divided, more mums that I've planted and divided. This is a wandering onion. I'm really investigating its potential for a food source because instead of producing flowers, it produces new bulbs. And the leaves can be harvested just like a chive or a green onion, and so it's an excellent onion substitute, especially for anything like soups, salads, things like that. And so it's so prolific and it's so abundant, and you can just go in and just cut leaves. So instead of doing chives, which has the little fine leaves, you get a whole lot out of this.
Okay.
And this whole patch was created from bulbs like this last August. So we got all of that so far. Now you see it's dwarfed in the middle because I think the nutrients aren't able to. There's something going on where the perimeter is all big and the middle is little. Here's more mums. Here's some ornamental grasses. They're divisions of what I was given last year. I'm growing garlic real heavy this year. you're supposed to plant it in the fall, and I didn't, so this is all spring grown. But I'm wanting to build up the garlic so that I can provide it for the House of Bread and a couple other food ministries, but also keep enough of reserve that we can plant more every year.
Okay.
So both the garlic and onion, I'm trying to do that where I'm holding back enough that I can keep. You can see those onions, they'll produce like crazy, because each plant will divide into 2 to 3 new bulbs.
Oh, wow.
They don't swell up, but you can get a bulb this big, this long, so it's just like having a small round bulb. But you get a whole cluster on the top. What's cool about them, out of that cluster of bulbs, 1 or more of them will produce a new shoot, which will have its own cluster of bulbs. So that's why they call it a walking or wandering onion, because this gets so heavy it finally falls over, and wherever it hits, they root and they take off. More garlic here, more garlic there, more garlic here. I normally never grow lettuce, but the House of Bread wants it. I grow kale. And we eat kale as our salad.
We make a lot of pesto out of kale.
Yeah, well, we cooked kale, and kale salad is the only green my wife and I eat in our salad. And then we add kale to chili, to anything we have, we'll cook kale and add it to it. But House of Bread clientele, they like their normal salads. They're not weaned over to kale yet. So I'm providing salad greens for House of Bread, and these are so dense. Any one of these rows could probably do 4 or 5 or 6 rows. So once I get these transplanted out, they'll be producing a lot. And I may just harvest from here and just scissor cut them, and I'll be able to get anywhere from 3 to 5 pickings off of this whole thing. And I got 2 other beds over there. You can see some of the raspberries that I missed that are coming back up.
Yeah, I bet you've always had stuff coming up.
And tomatoes coming up from last year. Last year I staged tons of tomato plants, got any place to put them, and I ended up with just solid tomatoes just everywhere. These are kale starts. I got them started a month or more later, so they've struggled more with pests and things than they normally would. They were late start. Those are some of the this year's raspberry shoots that I was digging up earlier this spring. Makes them easier to transplant. Those will produce fruit this year. So I love that about raspberries, that they produce so much fruit the year they come up. This is the newest Feed Dayton site. Okay. But it's kind of, I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to use it for. It might be to grow food for the community rather than for the House of Bread and the places that we provide food for. This whole raspberry patch came out of that little hole in my bed right there. Wow. Every single plant in here came out of there. And you can see a lot of them had a pretty serious transplant shock. But even one as bad as this, normally the root will survive. As long as it's got some green and as long as it's been here, it'll start sending up shoots at the base. But the ones that did survive, they're already ready to produce fruit.
They do. They got some little bitty ones here, don't they?
Now those are the stables.
Okay.
But what I'm doing is I'm growing out pumpkins, watermelon, and squash in the containers up here, and it's still a little too hot. So I've had, maybe it's not thriving as much as I'd want it to. I may possibly move these somewhere else and put different ones up here, but at some point this year, I'm going to have trailing vines that are hanging over the side of here and covering the whole top.
So you grow pumpkins out of this?
Well, not out of it. It's too fresh.
Okay.
So I can't really use this a whole lot this year. So by putting it in containers where the soil's bound and held in here, I'm hoping to get a lot of production out of the space. And then next year, this is going to be perfect to put out at all my sites. Cool. And use this for a compost mulch. But what I also do with this, which is what I've been trying to get the city to wood chips. It's like full of teeth to get the city to give me any wood chips. You can see it. I can grow watermelons, pumpkins out of here. So I can take a vacant lot, bury it with wood chips, and just provide enough dirt for the plants, for the roots to go. And by growing trailing crops, they'll spread out and cover the whole surface. So it won't look, like just all wood chips. You'll have all that vegetative growth, but it won't be weeds, because this won't produce weeds for another year or two. Okay. And I can keep adding new layers of chips. Now you do have a few seedlings showing up, but they won't survive, and any that did I deal with. But usually the seedlings and fresh chips, they've got enough to sprout, but there's not enough nutrient in the chips for them to survive. The fresh wood chips will deplete all the nitrogen that the plants need, so they won't last. But I like the idea that you can take a vacant lot, bury it with wood chips. These are pretty crappy ones because the blades weren't sharpened yet.
Yeah, they didn't like.
I just got a new load today over at the building at Torrance, and I see that they got their blade replaced.
Yeah.
So it could look a whole lot better, and it will. And since these are kind of crappy, I'm just going to top dress these with a newer load now that they got their blade replaced.
Okay. Now we got a tour of the garden here. Tell me about yourself. What made you do Feed Dayton? What made you do it?
Well, I think there's two answers to that question. One of them is I just live and breathe resourcefulness. I always look at life in ways of doing things more efficiently, more economically, more resourcefully. And so I saw Feed Dayton as an opportunity to express myself in that way and to show people what could be done by utilizing the resources that we already have around us. You know, up until recently, the stables were paying to have their manure hauled. The county collects yard waste, charges people, and then sends it away to somebody else. The people that paid the money to drop it there don't get the material back. And the wood chips, you know, the city was always looking for places to dump their chips. Now they've got a spot at Wagner Ford, but they won't hardly give them to me at all.
You know, they've it was in last week's city council agenda. They paid a company, I think it was 20 grand, to provide wood chips for some kind. I'm not sure which playground it was, but wood chips for a landscaping project. So they are buying.
They're buying wood chips.
Yes, they are.
Because they don't know how to manage the chips they have.
Okay.
Because see, you've got chips that are collected without leaves, which could be used in playground situations. And then you got chips collected with leaves that you wouldn't want in a playground situation. So it's just a matter of managing the materials that you have and knowing which ones are suited best for one thing and which, like for me in urban farming, if it doesn't have any leaf material in it, I use it in my paths.
Okay.
If it's got leaf material in it, I let it age for a year or two, and I use it in the beautification projects. It makes a beautiful mulch. So the two things, that was the one as far as it was a vehicle for me to express my creativity and resourcefulness and all that. The other thing, I was attending East Dayton Baptist Church in 2008, and a couple of the ladies went to the leadership expressing an interest to start a food ministry there. And they were, you know, among my circle of friends at the church, and so I said, well, you know, if you're going to start this food ministry, how about if I go to the abandoned playground in front of the church where they used to have a daycare. I said, and I'll start a garden there and I'll raise food for your food ministry. So the leadership approved both of those, the food ministry and my desire to garden in their abandoned playground. So the playground hadn't been used for 7 years. Had a mulberry tree in the middle, so you not only had all the old wood chips in that space, but you had every year's worth of leaves falling into that space. So it was just like potting soil, just beautiful black, crumbly, rich dirt. So that went really well. And because they had a ministry where they actually went out and delivered food so that they had an opportunity to share with people in their homes. So you know, people wouldn't come and just pick it up and walk away. In order to get their food, they had to set up a time where the person could come out, express what their needs were, what can we pray for, things like that. So it gave me a good chance to find out what foods produced the most, what was appreciated the most, and just how all that, you know, can tie together. So then we bought this house in 2009, actually December 2008. So with what I gained in experience at East Dayton Baptist, I started what I was considering a test garden here as the vision for Feed Dayton was beginning to grow. And I focused on our results at the first garden, and I also added a few new plants and products, and just the vision just started to develop in my mind. So basically what came out of it was Feed Dayton, which is to say, if you're feeding the hungry, the most important thing is nutrition. So it's not as important of what they really want all the time. It's what'll produce the most that's going to benefit and provide, you know, health for the body. So Feed Dayton